Greetings and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Jamel Atkins Sharif, and here on this channel I'll be focused on global Black educational futures. So I want to kick this off with a little bit about myself, my story from principal to consultant and advocate for global Black education. So I started in public education, teaching special ed in East New York, Brooklyn. It was during the 90s. And it was during that time I was teaching math and social studies to students with identified special needs. It was during that time that I began to consider the limitations of teaching. Whereas I could do some great things in the classroom, I felt like I wanted to have an impact beyond the classroom. And I felt like I could not wrest myself from the limiting beliefs or limiting structures of the school leaders I worked under. So I recall my last principalship, I was a dean of discipline, actually. Not my last principalship, my last teaching role, I was a dean of discipline, actually. And in that role, unfortunately, I was doing what deans of discipline are expected to do, which is, investigate behavioral issues, do write-ups, take people through suspension processes. So in other words, I was supporting the school to prison pipeline system that we know of today. And whereas, I understand that, I wasn't feeling it after a while. I was able to insert some of my own ideas. So in addition to doing that, I also ran a chess club. I taught pre-law. We did a little mock trial. I even collaborated with an English teacher to run like spoken word and poetry slams to kind of bring that to the school. Shout out Miss Jones. But ultimately I was like, I need to be a school leader so that, my ideas and things like that can actually become the basis for an institution. And so my first role as a principal is actually as a founding director of a charter school in Springfield, Massachusetts. So this was like a great opportunity to kind of learn that leadership is not only about, leading and conveying a vision, but it's also about system and institution building. So literally, this role begins with me in a room with a board of directors, and we've got like a dozen binders on the desk, and we've got a year to turn that and our collective intellectual energies into a school. And so I had learned so much about how to engage families and communities, how to get people to go from a concept from some folks who they don't even really know, right, into trusting us to steward their children educationally, right? And so it was an amazing experience, and it taught me a lot about how to engage communities, how to try to meet families and communities' needs, and how to create a system that would be responsive to communities. And that was a great experience. I also led schools in Cambridge and Boston, Massachusetts. In each space, I sought to create systems that would survive the leader. I learned early on that you can be a great leader doing wonderful things, but if you aren't putting systems in place and you aren't institutionalizing the work and pulling people into the authoritative and decision-making roles, when you leave, so does all of your work, so does your impact, right? So I came to learn the value of institution building, which kind of harkened back to my early childhood. I started out schooling, not even in the public schools, but in the Nation of Islam's Clara Muhammad School. And so the Nation of Islam was all about commitment to community, responsibility to the Black community, and to institution build. And so, I'm in leadership learning or remembering that, yes, you're not just there to be in charge, you're also there to leave an institutional or systemic legacy. And so I recognize the intersection between class and race in terms of what the educational experience has been like in the United States. And I also, am cognizant of the economic indicators and the educational outcome indicators which throughout the United States position Indigenous, Black, and Latino children at the bottom. And so my particular focus has been on institution building, but my lens has been directed towards Black children. And I believe that Black children too often exist in spaces and sites of struggle with limited possibilities. Not because the children are not capable or are not brilliant, but because of attitudes, beliefs, lack of resources, some combination of those things, inexperienced teachers, all leading to outcomes which continue to leave Black children, and by extension, other children of color, at the bottom in terms of opportunities, in terms of outcomes, and ultimately in terms of life chances. And so where I am now is recognizing that my talents as a leader, my talents pedagogically, my consulting skills are all in service of providing resources, instruction, support, right? So that Black children can exist in intellectual and academic spaces which are promising, which present possibility, which demonstrate bright futures. And my premise is that in so doing, we are also creating sites where those kinds of opportunities and outcomes exist for all children. I'm not simply speaking about what's happening in the United States. I'm also reflecting on my recent experience in Ghana, where I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the International Educators Summit at an international school, which was a fantastic experience, but those schools are only available to a small percentage of Ghanaian children. Most Ghanaian children who attend public schools, and many of those schools are dismal. Many don't even have basic resources like electricity. And so these children are expected to compete in a 21st century reality. And yes, some of this is the legacy of colonialism and neocolonialism, the product of lack of investment by current governments, right? But also this all exists within a global nexus that positions Black people globally at the bottom. I'm in Panama now. I was fortunate enough to receive a Spencer Education Research Grant to study Afro-Panamanian educational experiences. And here too, we see a situation where the education system, desperately in need of reform, is serving Black and Indigenous Panamanian children the worst, right? And so when I think about the broader Latin American context, when I think about the challenges in the Caribbean school systems, when I think about the struggles in West Africa and throughout the continent in terms of education, I continue to hold the view that anti-Blackness is global, that it is intentional, that it is by colonial design, and that education becomes one of the ways in which it is perpetuated and reinforced. And so my goal, my mission, right, what I believe is and will continue to be my life's work, is to collaborate, to work with, to support, to coach, to teach individuals, groups, and systems so that education spaces and educational experiences that impact Black children provide them with the best chances for a bright future. And my premise is that in so doing, we're also rethinking the educational experience and repurposing the educational experience for all children who have been marginalized by systems of colonialism, by systems of racism, by systems of classism, that seek to maintain a hierarchy and extract more than they produce excellence. And so that's my mission. That's what I'm doing in my work. That's what I do when I teach. That's what I do when I consult. That's what I'm doing with this research. And so I hope you will join me on this journey to help to create bright Black educational futures.